Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. We have a really special episode. This is our 100th episode. That's right, we've hit the record button 100 times on Beyond Rent, and we're really excited about it. And we're really thankful for all of the people that have listened to the podcast over the last couple years. So we're doing a few special things to celebrate. First off, we've added video to the podcast. So we have a new recording studio. We're really excited about it. And so we're gonna have video. Now, if you've listened to the audio portion, for the last couple of years, and that's what you prefer, no worries. It'll still be there. You can listen to the audio if you're driving or exercising a place where video isn't really a good fit. No problem at all. That's always going to be available. But if you want to watch the conversation, you can do that via YouTube. Talking about YouTube, we are adding dedicated social media profiles for Beyond Rent, so you can stay up to date with what we're doing here at Beyond Rent. So that's really exciting for us as well. We want to continue to get this great content out there. And the most exciting thing we're doing for our 100th episode is we have a really special guest in studio with us. We have Don Brunner of BRG. Don is well known in the industry. He's very active in local and national apartment associations. He's a past president of NAA. And if anyone has met him, you probably consider him a friend because he's one of the nicest guys in the industry. So we're really excited to have Don here. And without further ado, Don, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Thanks, Joe. It's an honor to be here in studio for your first, your 100th episode and for the first time on video. So make sure you've got some good editing tools going on here. You're going to need it.
I think this is going to be great. We're excited about it, and we really appreciate you taking the time out. We know you're a busy person. All morning we've been talking about all of the great things that you're doing over at BRG and the growth, and so you're a busy guy making business happen. So we appreciate the time. And as we get started, I want to make sure our audience knows who you are, just in case they haven't ran into you at NAA or maybe other association events. So go and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and maybe we'll even talk about how you got started in the industry.
Sure. Thanks. Don Brunner, President and CEO of BRG Realty Group. We're based here in Cincinnati on Kenwood Road. Great group, real family-oriented company. We've got a great team, and it's really a pleasure and honor to work with that group. We really feel like you're part of the family when you come in at BRG, and we hope everybody feels that way as well. So, and that kind of bleeds in. That's kind of how I feel about everything. The association has been a big part of our lives since I've gotten the industry back in 1998, so a long time, and kind of got into the industry, kind of understood about some of the people in the industry, fell in love with the industry, started out on the supplier side, and worked in the supplier side until 2004 when I made the transition over to the management side of the business, and have been active ever since. Was active in the associate side in the apartment association, and then became pretty active on the owner side in several of the affiliates. So I've had the pleasure of being the president of both Dayton, the Dayton Association where I started, the Cincinnati Association, now Columbus, of the state, and then in 2022 the NAA chair. So that was pretty exciting. Really kind of a family guy, blessed with 6 kids between my wife and I, and then we have 6 grandchildren with a 7th on the way coming in July. So that really takes up a lot of our time and really our focus, and is as my career has continued, and really the focus is more about family, and it really kind of takes it forward and really kind of look for helping the next group of people come up and kind of be part of the family and help their future and careers as well. So,
yeah, that's great. And I love how you talk about the industry and also your personal life in very similar ways, right? That it is about family. It's about bringing people into BRG and treating them like family. It's serving in our association, so there's a family community feel across our industry, and then your own personal life with that's amazing. A 7th grandkid on the way. So a lot of time, but I imagine that's not inexpensive either.
It's not, but they're such a blessing, and really enjoy spending time with them. And, it is, I talk about my family a lot with the industry, and it's really the industry as a whole has been a family for us as well. My wife has worked for in this industry on the supplier side for a long time, and so most people know us as together as we go to events. So her and I have been going to the National Apartment Association events for about 15 years now, and it's really friends all across the country, and it's allowed us to meet people from all walks of life, from small companies, big companies, cities from coast to coast, and even international friends. This industry is nothing like it. There is nothing like it in the world.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people like you that make it that way, and I definitely feel the same way when you go to these events. You definitely feel like people are very inclusive. They want to bring you in. They want to help you succeed. Sure. Right. And I think when we help people succeed, the industry succeeds as a result of it.
I agree completely.
Well, let's jump into our topic for today. So you've got a lot of experience in our industry. And so for this special episode, we really wanted to learn from you and your experience. So let's talk about the past. What are some of the biggest changes you have seen? You said you went from the supplier side over to actually being on the operator side. What are the biggest changes you've seen over the past couple of decades that you've been in the industry?
Well, I'm old, huh? So that's why I'm here. No, it's funny. As you go back, when I first got into on the management side, operator side of the business, calls would come in, and there would be, how did the call come to you? And there would be a notepad on the desk, and you had to pick the source that it came from. And there was our team members, our leasing professionals would go through and do kind of a tick sheet or a call sheet, how many calls they did each day. And it was all manual. There would be a report at the end of the week of all of your calls and on your tours and your closings. And that whole process was so manual, and so many opportunities for mistakes going forward. And talking to maintenance guys, and we had walkie-talkies. We didn't have cell phones, Then we kind of went to some Nextel phones, which click to talk or whatever, which are basically a walkie-talkie as well. But we talked on walkie-talkies to our maintenance guys and hope they were in range and they were on the right channel as they were going forward. So the communication part, just with your own site teams, was completely different, in how you operated a site, and then how residents communicated with us. Obviously, everything was walk-ins. Trying to figure out how a prospect come to find you. Did they drive by? That was one of the big advertising sources. It was drive by. Well, maybe that happened back then. Today, everybody's looking online and trying to find the sites and the companies. But the whole there just really wasn't technology to speak of at that point. And so it was real personal. Most of the interactions, though, too, when you did a lease renewal, when you did a lease signing, everything was in person, shaking your hands. And that part of the personal side, we've continued to try to add and keep in our business today, although a number of our customers like the technology and the arm reach, or the arm length between that you can do online. But that whole part of it was more personal back then in the beginning for me.
Yeah, and when I think about our industry, you say the word personal, I think that's really important, right? We're talking about people's homes. It's where they're raising their families. It is a personal decision. And so I think it's important that it remains personal. But I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because it was very manual, very personal, very low tech. But there was technology back there. I just don't think our industry was really leveraging it at that point, or needing to use it in reality at that stage. So when you think about how we've gone from that process that was very manual, like you said, a lot of handwritten reports, things like that. What was like the different seasons or different time periods where you started seeing change happen over your career?
Well, really over the last 20 plus years, it just continued. Technology started changing, and it was, is it something somebody's going to use? What's the value there? What's the return on investment? Is it a time saving? Is it a revenue generator? how are we going to really put a return on that, whether time or money. So part of it was the evaluation, and still today. I mean, I get a number of emails and calls a day from a variety of groups, all trying to integrate with us or be part of our company, and trying to evaluate today, even is what we're doing today appropriate, or should we be making a change, or is the change really worth it or not when you make that change? So, not losing focus on the personal side is really we've continued to do that today as well. So our company as a whole has been a little slow to adopt on a lot of the technology, which is really not proven to be a really bad thing, because we've kept it more on the personal side as we go forward. So, and we have a great relationship with our residents that way. So trying to not lose track of that as you go forward. So over the 20 years, that's come through with more technology, and how to track your leads, and how to track your activity and your purchase orders, and how you make payments, and how you communicate with the residents. And for the big phase was Facebook. Everybody thought that's how you're going to sell apartments, is Facebook. And so many of the sales presentations and things was all about Facebook. And sure, that is. There's a lot of people that use Facebook today, but it's more of a communication tool instead of really a sales tool. And so having all the social media stuff as you go through is really became more of a way to get your name out more, I think, as we went forward. But it's really about what you do and how you do it that makes the most sense and profitability for the business.
It's really interesting that you speak of how BRG may have actually been slower than other people to adopt new technology, and how you see that as an advantage. A lot of the conversations I have, some people actually point to the opposite, right? That they attribute fast tech adoption and making really strategic moves with technology as what has kind of advanced them. So I love hearing that you have kind of a different story, that you wanted to move a little bit slower. You wanted to be a little more strategic. You didn't want to lose the personal touch as you moved forward with technology. So when you were evaluating these things over, again, past years or even decades with what technology to bring and when, what was like maybe one of the main drivers? Was it the resident experience and making things better for the resident? You had kind of mentioned like profitability, or even maybe staff, experience, right? Things that were good for the staff. Was there a certain element that you kind of ranked really, really high when it came to technology and making that decision?
Well, it really kind of, as I think there's always been shifts, and residents always work different times of the day and night. But more and more over the years, residents don't always want to come in and shake your hand. They want to text you, or they want to email you. So that process is really trying to understand the best way to communicate with each resident. No, not unlike best way to communicate with your children or your or a team member, is what's the best way they respond. And some residents respond really by shaking your hand and looking them in the eye, and others are all based on an email or a text or an online work order. So understanding and how to best communicate and make that communication trail happen. So having the website with the ability for residents to go through and put in work orders themselves and look at their balance and trying to understand that was really a direction. And then providing them opportunities to make payments, because each were learning over time. They wanted to pay differently. Did they want to pay by check or a money order, and how did that work? And then credit cards, and more people were paying by credit cards and ACH, and trying to figure out all those options. And then as those became more prevalent, there used to be in our business, people wanted to pay by cash. You don't see that anymore. It's a good thing. We didn't want cash, because that's cash tends to not have the right trail. So that really hasn't been part of the equation in some time, which is great. But that whole process of making that transition, I think, was key to give our residents options to make payments, and then from there and allow them outlets to connect with us on work orders and how they wanted to go through. And then really we had started the process to go into the online leasing before COVID, but really COVID really advanced in the last 4 years, technology and the adoption of technology from not only our company, but others, just because we had to, because you had that distancing, you had that offices closed at time or not open as much. And how do you get residents into buildings, and how do you get them prospects to see a unit, and how do you communicate with them? So, the adoption then, as you fast forward into, online leasing and then online renewals and that paperless kind of network, that's completely opposite from what it started. It started years ago, where you had all these files and file folders and copies and number of trees that have been used over the time. And the fact of not doing that part of it anymore is a big change. But really just the evolution of how the resident wanted to communicate, and more texting, I think, really came into play with kids and young adults and then adults. I think that whole communication path changed, and that really kind of led to a number of changes in that system.
Yeah, we definitely saw that as well, right? The COVID period and I would say massive leap forward in technology, because we had to, right? People still need housing, right? Just because a lot of the world was shut down or partially shut down. People need a place to live. Like that's just a part of how life works. So a lot of property management companies were figuring out how to do more online processes. So it's great that you were already on that path, right? Because many weren't, right? In our industry, they were still doing a lot of pen and paper, especially for leases. Maybe they were doing some technology, but it definitely moved forward very quickly. And I really like what you said about the communication piece. And what I tend to see in our industry is this: in the past, it was really kind of like, this is how it works, right? If you want to communicate, you need to call us. If you have a question, it's best if you stop in, and you have to come in and sign the lease, things like that. Where now it's really the consumer that's dictating how the communication works. Like you said, it's what is their preference? Do they want email, text? Some people still want phone calls, right? But they're going to be able to kind of pick and choose what works best for them. Have you found that that's hard on an operational side for your team to accommodate all of these different means of communication?
It is, and also with staffing. Staffing has changed. Over the time. I remember first being in the business, and people talked about call centers and being able to answer calls, and we've experimented with them here and there over the years. But the evolution of who's going to answer the phone, notoriously in our business from both sites, not just ours, there's a lot of missed calls. So how to go through and answer those calls and how to communicate best. So it is difficult trying to make sure you communicate with them, and that's where we do of course email like everybody else, but the number of ways to try to communicate with the residents is key. We started our own app about maybe 6-7 years ago, and it made a big difference to having them have another outlet for us that's more in their hand, that they didn't need a desktop or something to communicate from that piece and go on look at their ledgers and communicate with us, and they could do a work order from a distance, so online through the app. So yeah, it has been difficult to communicate with them, but it's just a matter of continuing to try. I mean, we especially during the pandemic, I was really proud of our team for a number of things. But when the pandemic first hit and we were going through, like most companies, we actually stayed in office where some closed down. We stayed open the whole time, both from the corporate office and the site level. We made sure that we called each of our residents every month just to make sure if they needed help and needed rental assistance, and could we help them? What was their methods for that? So each site had a list, no matter where they were in our portfolio, just of options, or at least referral sources for the residents. And so I think that one-on-one communication and reach out was important. So we continue to make those efforts, and they were mostly all on phone calls. We did some email, but just depending on times with people. But I think continuing to make the effort is the biggest key.
Yeah, that's just another sign of how your team treats residents like family. During that time period, that was a common theme that people would say, like, reach out to your friends and family, check in on them. A lot of people were, staying in, obviously, for extended amounts of time, not going out like they normally would. And that's hard on people, right? So we are checking in on the people that we loved and cared for. And your team was doing that with their residents, which I think really speaks to the core values that you have at BRG and treating your residents like they are family, because you do care about them, right? They're part of the BRG group over there. So I think that's great. And so let's talk a little bit about maybe the current landscape, right? We've uncovered a little bit of what's happened in the past, kind of where we're headed, and maybe where we're at today. With where BRG is, where do you see the opportunities right now in property management? Like, where are the areas where BRG is saying, this is where we think we need to be investing our time and our resources?
Well, that changes. Today's world in our industry is significantly different than a few years ago. I mean, interest rates being what they are, it's difficult to pencil out a deal. Real estate taxes are continuing to rise to just significant numbers. Property insurance is on the rise, big increases. So people are always trying to talk to us and legislators and news outlets about the fact of rising rents, and rents are going up. Well, but so's all those categories, plus wages, plus parts, plus inflation, plus, everything is plus. So it's really difficult as you go through to try to pencil a deal out today. You really have to look at uncover as many stones in as many different areas as you can. We as a group were out looking at a site yesterday in central Kentucky. We're also looking at new developments. So I think there's going to be a change, a continual change. There's obviously been a pretty significant shift in people working from home and a number of office buildings that are not occupied as they used to be. So I think there'll be some more consolidations in office buildings. And obviously there's already been a transition where a number of those are being turned into apartment homes. I think that'll continue to shift because there's already a significant structure there, and you can get a number of units in most of those type of buildings. So I think that'll continue. We continue to look at deals and just see what's happening. I mean, with people have financed deals that when interest rates were at 3%, 5 years ago, and now they're going to refi them at 6 or 7. So will that pencil for them? And is it an opportunity for us? And so, continue to look for those kind of deals, but also new construction. There's a number of land deals that are out there now, and there seems to be more land available and opportunities. So a matter of getting that zoned in really the areas of what's the next growth area? Where's the next population movement or shift that we can kind of head that direction? So,
yeah, well, it's exciting though, because some people might think, well, this is a really challenging time period when it comes to real estate. Maybe we shouldn't grow, right? Maybe we need to kind of hold back a little bit. Maybe we need to tighten up our operations and kind of just focus on what we can control internally, where you believe there's still opportunity out there. You just have to look at it differently, maybe evaluate it differently. And what's really hard is predicting what's going to happen next, right? But where the climate is right now. So there's still opportunity there, which is exciting because we need more units, right? I mean, that's one thing we hear a lot about is there's just not enough, especially affordable or reasonably priced opportunities out there in the multifamily space. So we need more units. We need people to actually expand their businesses. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're moving forward with growth. You're not waiting for the market to change.
Right. And part of it is the approach. How do you size the deal? What's the financing terms? Do you do shorter term financing to start with instead of locking it up? So we're really looking, the term we use is attainable housing, which is really kind of market rate workforce type housing. You go through and figure out what the average rent is or the average wage in that area of town or the town you're moving into, and then if your rents can hit those numbers, it's kind of the approach we use in a number of markets, especially a new market we're moving into. So it's a challenge, but we just got to continue moving forward. So
yeah, but it's good to hear there is opportunity out there.
Yeah,
because again, growth is important, and you've made, I think, a good career of growing, right? And having growth and success there. So that's good. So when we think about our current climate, you had mentioned staffing earlier. What do you think of when you think of staffing right now? Like right after COVID, I think it was even more challenging trying to get people back into work and into the right roles. And I hear that's gotten a little bit better, but then I also hear from some other people that there's still some really big challenges when it comes to staffing. At BRG, what is kind of your approach to staffing right now?
It's all about people. Be a successful company, it's all about people. So we're really trying to go out and find and recruit the best people we can, retain everybody we can. We're full approach from benefits. Every year we look at what new benefit option we can include in the benefits for our team members. And we're really focused on keeping the cost for benefits down, but also increasing them and absorbing more from the company side. What can we offer them in education, career development? Our real focus is really a career, not a job. So our goal is to bring in our new team members and how do we retain them? Do we provide them a good career path and a really laid out path that if that's the path they choose, here's the steps you need to do. So we offer all kinds of educational opportunities, whether it's through the apartment association or through other outlets that can help their career. We really look at the whole picture. So we try to help financially, not just from a income standpoint, but in investments and how are you getting loans and what's each employee's, each team member's personal focus and goal, and how can we help them achieve that? And it's family. I mean, we're with them 8 to 10 hours a day, and we want to make sure they're taken care of and they're happy. And so we're always trying to go out and recruit. So we've got a great group going through trying to help find team members, and then it's really everybody's role to help add new team members. So we're always looking. So it's changed. I don't think I think our industry is big, but I don't think everybody really knows about our industry. So you hear, a lot of people know about hospitality, but I think a lot of people just don't understand about apartments and what a maintenance technician their future and their financial stability. It's there. It's not like it's a seasonal job. I mean, it's a full-time job. It's 40 hours a week. So there's just great careers that way, and on the technician side, and then on the sales side and on the office side, the careers there for people for coming in and leasing with no experience and growing and learning the business. The careers are there. So part of our mission is not only is our company and others is to try to make sure people know about our industry, and then it's about trying to reach out everywhere we can to find new team members. So word of mouth is always the best way. So.
Yeah, I noticed that when I entered this industry, the same, I think, response that you just said. Like, I was aware that this existed. I didn't realize how big or deep or wide or varied the opportunities were in this industry. And I think by connecting staff to local and national apartment associations really opened their eyes to what's really happening out there, and that it's just not a property manager and the maintenance team, right? That there's all types of, like, anything you want to do basically in life, you probably can do within this industry. So you can be a part of this great industry providing housing, and you can be in technology, you can be in marketing, you can be in leadership. It all exists.
Absolutely.
Yep, some great opportunities there. Okay, well, let's talk about the future, right? So knowing what you know about the past and knowing where we're at right now, predicting the future is difficult. It's a big challenge. No one really can do it. If we could do it, we'd probably be doing many different things than what we're doing right now. But where are we really headed in the industry? You mentioned some of the challenges with the real estate market. I think there's regulations and legislation that's kind of making things a little more challenging as well for our industry. But where are we headed when you think about our industry in general?
It's a little scary, to be honest with you. The legislative part of, people talk about what keeps you up at night and expenses from insurance and property taxes, things like that keep you up. But the legislative landscape really is what keeps you up at night. And you have to look at it because years ago it used to be federal legislation and sometimes state, and now it's local and county and cities and townships. And they're putting this legislation in place that is just continues to make it more difficult on different types of regulations, from every aspect of the business, from what you buy to how you buy it, to how you talk to a resident, and how they're screened, to how they pay and what they pay, and it just continues to change. And that area is the biggest concern today, is because if you open each, you say, well, you open the paper, you don't really open the paper anymore. You open online, you open an app, you go through and read, but it's just, you have to be aware of every little town that you're operating in, of what's happening or what's coming up. So that's really concerning. I think there'll be, over time, I think there'll be more, a number of companies are going to more consolidation when it comes to team members and how they operate sites, and sharing of staff. And we've always shared staff from a help standpoint. You and I are moving a refrigerator up a couple flights of stairs, and we have a buddy, I come and help Joe from a couple, miles away to come help you, that kind of sharing. But I think more just staffing wise, because of the lack of new additions into our field, is making some of that consolidation a real thing. So we have a few sites today that we do some consolidation on and sharing the staff, and I think that will continue. I think call centers are potentially more an option going forward, or at least ways for those calls to be answered, and sharing of calls, and whether it's moving calls via VoIP systems or moving calls different ways, but being able to still communicate and answer the phone. It's going to be intriguing over time, and on the staffing side, to make sure we have enough staff, and bringing in more staff, and then coupling that with the legislative component is it's the real challenges.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be challenges ahead. And when I think about having the right people in the right place, doing the right things, it is a challenge, especially if you're starting to consolidate, maybe some centralizing of different operations and things like that. Those are real opportunities, but they're also challenges, right? You have to have the right things in place, because one wrong move, it really could have a large impact on your operations and your residents. And I often think that most of the industry, I think, is looking to the technology portion to help solve for some of that. And we hear a lot about AI and other pieces of technology. Any thoughts on that, as far as like how technology is going to come in and maybe, I shouldn't say save the day, because it never saves the day, right? But how it can maybe supplement different strategies or different efforts that we're making to make sure we're viable long term?
Well, I think the whole bots, and how the AI, and answering basic questions from prospects, and information about the site and the area and pricing and things like that. Those I think they're prevalent today, and they're just going to continue. People want immediate answers at 2 a.m, and how do you get that? And those types of technologies are there today, and we've got some early adoption of some, or not early adoption, but we've got some adoption of that today, and are continuing to look at more of that, and to provide more information to the prospect right away, and to the customer. So I think it's just going to continue to become more of an issue, or more of a focus, I should say, not issue, but more of a focus, that how the best get information. People want information, immediately. They don't want to send an email and wait for 24 hours. Those days are long since gone. They expect an answer, a text, and a response. So having that information right away is really key. And so I think that's continue to be a focus. And then there's all kinds of other parts of the country that people are doing some sharing of residences, and that's really not something happening here in Cincinnati today. But some of the units and changes, people are wanting smaller and more mobile, and that's interesting. And packages, and more people aren't shopping as much, so having to figure out what we're going to do with packages from a technology standpoint, and location, and the expense, and do they want to pay for the expense of a locker for them to go pick it up? But that's the safety of having that versus sticking them on the door. So that's been an issue. The whole package delivery portion it's just another component that the site teams are dealing with today that they didn't before, and that's from that technology, and then how we communicate to the resident with that information as well, that they've got something. So
yeah, it's really interesting because especially with communities that aren't brand new, right? They haven't been built in the last 5 years. A lot of these properties weren't built to handle the current climate, right? Whether it's the size of the apartment, of the home, like you said, package delivery, all of these things weren't an issue years ago. Sure. And it's hard to, I guess, retrofit or take an existing property and kind of bend it around the current needs of the culture. And I think that's part of what's really challenging to solve for is these buildings are designed to be there for many, many decades, but they were built for a specific time, and things are very, very different now.
The whole work from home piece and component just wasn't there. So people today are looking for where can they make a desk or a space in their current home. So obviously most new developments have that, or they'll have a room similar to this that they have available for residents to use to have meetings or to have a call. And so that's key as you move forward as well. And providing that technology, we used to have business centers for people to come in, and we still have some desktops at times for people, but that was the thing, a business center. You had a place for people to come and use the internet because they might not have it at their home or a computer. So, but more conference rooms and that kind of space available for people is a change as you're going forward. So
it's always changing, right? I guess that's the big takeaway is things Absolutely. Are always changing.
Absolutely. Everybody's got another way to make it easier for staff or sites, and just figuring out how, if that's something you want to adopt as a company or not. So
absolutely.
And it happens from everywhere, from paying bills to communicating. So
yeah, it touches every single aspect of what we do. Well, Don, as we kind of turn the corner into the end of the episode here, I want to ask a question of you. If somebody is entering our industry for the first time, given your experience, what is advice that you would give that person that wants to make a career out of the multifamily residential rental property industry? Like, what would you tell that new person that truly is seeking a long-term career?
The more the knowledge base and communication and friends and network you have, it's really the network is really key. As unfortunately, not every company is involved in these apartment associations and those activities. But having a network of individuals, and if your company doesn't do that, is there another network that you can come in to really bounce ideas off? Because growing and understanding what's out there and having that communication, it's best that you can do it within the industry. One of my biggest gains in all my time I've spent in the associations, both locally and nationally, is the relationships, but also the sharing of information. So I can call friends from across the country and ask questions about what's their thoughts on this. Have you used this product? Have you used this system? What's your procedure or policy for this? So understanding those types of avenues are out there, and communication opportunities are key and so beneficial for us and for me personally. So a new person coming in, obviously absorb as much as you can, but if they can get out and get involved in the association of some kind, just to open up their network, not to try to make it a career advancement, but just to talk to other leasing professionals, for instance, about how they close a deal or how they're communicating with their resident or what's their amenity or how do they sell against something else. And those types of things are the biggest advantage of being involved in our industry and having those opportunities through the association. So that network is the key.
So no matter what has changed over the years, people are still the most important part, right? We have to always take care of people. We have to lean on people. We have to learn from other people.
Always.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, if someone wants to learn more about BRG, what's the best way that they can do that?
Our website, brgapartments.com, go on site. We have lists about the company, opportunities for employment, our communities. So that would be the best way. So we have all the social medias from LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everything. You go out and find us on there as well. So love to talk to anybody about the business. Somebody wanting to get into business, they don't have to come to work with us. Obviously, I'd like to talk to them, but if they don't, just to talk about the industry, I'd be happy to talk with anyone about our industry and all the things that's provided for us and how fortunate I am to have been in this industry so long.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we'll drop some links in the show notes for BRG as well as your LinkedIn profile. So if people are looking to connect and learn more, they can touch base with you. Well, Don, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. I appreciate you spending some time in studio, being our first victim of the video podcast. I think you've really provided great value to help us understand what the past has looked like, but also understand where we're at today and where we're headed.
Sure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that's listening in or watching in on our YouTube channel. We really appreciate you taking the time to be part of Beyond Rent. And until next time, keep going Beyond Rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going Beyond Rent.